The floor polish has now dried. It's been left for a couple of days, and what I have done as well is just my old trick, well, new trick to be honest, is bit of kitchen paper and just rubbed it off, and it just although it's actually quite glossy, it just sort of does still smooth it off a little bit, and you can feel the difference before and after. I just want to get a bit of a shine on there for when the decals go on, especially these large ones on the top of the wing and on the sides, that we've got a nice smooth surface to reduce any chance of silvering. So that's what I'm going to be doing now. Can't remember if I mentioned this, but I have touched that up a little bit. It seems a little bit thin there. Admittedly, I think there's a little notch just here where it probably could, the green should be a little bit wider. I've looked at it because I thought this brown bit was too big. It's actually this little more slither of brown which is a bit too big. It's not that as much as what it's not the amount of paint that I've had to put on fixing things up. I don't think it's I'm going to admit the mistake on that one. And I just don't think it's viable for literally moving the paint over a millimetre or two. That's all it is. So I'm going to stick with that. Decals. So we're doing scheme A. So that is this scheme. And actually going back to the tail, you can see that that chunk of brown there is actually quite a bit wider. And it is. I have checked. It maybe just goes over literally about a millimetre too much, but that is pretty much how it should be. I think that little notch just goes in there a bit too much. But anyway, we're going to get on at the main decals for A, and then go back and then do the stenciling. So that is really just going to be this section here, which we'll do. So where shall we start? Oh, so I've got a little tray here. I'll put some just tap water in there. It's actually a lid of a little box that I've turned upside down because there seems to be a little tray within a tray. So I'd like this quite well because then I've got a little area so I can move the bits out while still keeping them in a tray. And just to help things go, I've got a bit of micro sets which I can brush on before putting the decals on. So I reckon what we'll do is we'll start off with the decals on the wings. I think that's probably going to be a good place to start. So we'll cut these out. I'll just chop the other ones. One thing to notice here, actually cut that. Let's cut these off. One thing to notice is with the side ones, which I'll be putting on, the central bit, actually let's pop that in there, pop that in upside down first of all. The central red dot is separate. That just means, I think the reason they do that is it just helps, it means they can put the white down thicker, I think, without having so much of the bleed through come through. It does though mean that you've got to make sure you get that red dot. You're layering up the decal on there and you're making sure that the red dot goes in the middle. Right, whereabouts are we here? Let's turn that over and get this fella in whilst we're there. Actually put a bit more water in. I'll just put some water in a little squeezy. Flip you over as well. Prep these. I like to get rid of the number as well, purely because that number is also a decal and it can go floating off in the water and then start sticking onto other bits. Really need to trim so much off there. I've got my red dot somewhere. Where is it? I should have a red dot somewhere. There we go. So these have had, pop them to the side. these have had a couple of minutes in there, so hopefully they're moving around. I always find with Tamiya decals, they always seem quite thick on the sheet, but I've got to admit when they come off, once they set down, they do go quite well. Now, just check placement on these. It's going to be in line pretty much with the end cannon, almost, but not quite, because where there's the little panel to get to the cannon, the red circle's not completely in the centre of it. It's actually just skewed over one way, and almost, but not quite touching the front. So we just know our placement. So what I'll do, first one, so this is the blue. I'll just put it in a tape rule just to give it a bit more, because otherwise it's a bit top heavy. And whereabouts the decals will go, I'll just paint over that area. And that now, it's starting to crinkle a bit, so I'll take that out. That should help us now slide the decal and just help it sort of go in and lock down. So fingers crossed, yep, got it sliding off there. Where's the cannon? We're slightly inbound by a millimetre or two. Slide that away, and hopefully we're in about the right position. Of course, the problem is I now cannot see the decal so thick I can't actually see the panel lining underneath. But we have got coming through a bit of a lump, as you might be able to see from whereabouts the back of that is. Okay, so I think we're in about the right place. Just going to brush that over just to get some of the air bubbles out. I'm going to pop the second one on whilst we're here. A bit more of that one. So, same thing. Like that slides off. Get them both on. Hopefully lined up with each other. Yeah, there we go. I'll just pull you in a bit tighter just so you can see the little lump, which is the bottom part of that panel there. Just gives us a good little reference point there. Almost touching the... Yeah, that just seems a bit... Bring it that more that way, just a touch. I think we've got about the right height. Just going over those, so I think those are in about the right position. Grab a couple of cotton buds, should have got one just now, and now just, oh no, I don't think we've got much air underneath. I seem to just put in a bit of a crease then as I did it. Now where that little lump is, you can see the shadow for it. That's, hopefully, we're going to leave that like that for the moment. Get the main decal flat, and then hopefully with the application of the micro sole, so that's bottle number 2. They are marked one number 1, one number 2, so you know what order to do them in. Actually, that one's done a little bit. Suck down a bit better. Just getting out those panel lines, but that, once this is on and dry, that's when you put the red bottle on, maybe do a couple of layers, and that helps break down the decal backing a little bit and helps it sort of conform to the lumps and bumps. If I do it too much now, it will just split the decal. There we go. That's just actually squeezed the water out from under it. And that's what silvering is with the decals, is water that gets trapped between underneath and sort of is a thin layer of water that gets permanently trapped between the decal and the plastic. Okay, so we've added a little bit of colour to it. Already it's just actually, yeah, just makes it pop. Now the real ones that will make it pop are going to be these side ones. We'll pop those in the water first. I like to just put them in face down first, purely because I find, I've not learnt this anywhere, but I normally find if you put the decal in face up first, the water soaks into the card on the back first, makes it expand and warps it out, and then it sort of starts curling up on itself. So I find if I give the front a head start before turning it over, they don't curl up so much. Could just be me, that's just the way I sort of do it. Get rid of that. So next ones, won't do the red dots yet. We'll wait until the first decals go down well and that they're sort of definitely in place. So what we'll be doing is putting on the target, for want of a better phrase, there without the red dots, and then once those in place, then the lettering can go around it. Just flip that over a little bit. So whereas we'll start with this side first, and then we can make sure the other side's symmetrical. And that is going to be, we've got a panel of hatch here. I think actually that's one where if you do a reconnaissance Spitfire, that's whereabouts they have a camera window. But we know that there's a little actually there's a little decal I think that will go on there, but there's a little sort of marking there, and I can just see there's a little imprinted sort of bit in the plastic just to the right. Just to the right. I'm just trying to find. Okay. Hopefully that's caught the light. So if I just put the tip there, there's a little dimple just where that upper, yeah, there just to the right of that panel. And that, the red dot, which I haven't got on there, is just sort of touching there. But we can use that as a bit of a reference, knowing where that red dot's going to go. Just pop a bit of this on that side. This just helps it move around a bit. Take that first one out and just check we got not quite. It should use warm water for this one. This is just water from the tap, cold water, but I know people do like to use warm water, and it just helps the decal soften a bit quicker. I know I should do, but you're going to get the same result in the end if you wait long enough. Okay, so there we've got a bit of movement, but you can tell it's definitely quite thick decals there. Just leave that in just for a second whilst I just re-familiarise myself. So that central bit there, and it is just going to loop over, but not. So we will just have a gap of a couple of millimetres, and actually there's that panel there, the top left of the panel, literally there's just a slither of the top left of the panel which doesn't have the yellow on there. So again, we can use that as our reference. So pop that out there, there's literally just that corner. And now that's too far down because that's gone over the... So what I'm doing, using a couple of reference points, the top of that panel isn't quite covered, which it isn't there. It's just a couple of millimetres off of there, and if you come to the top, that's a little bit too high. No, I reckon we're about right there. Okay, I'm going to say that's in about the right place. So again, a bit of that over. Being careful not to move the decal around, or decal, depending on how you want to pronounce it. As I'm doing this, it now starts conforming. Yeah, I can see that little dot actually just coming through, which is just approximately whereabouts the... Yeah, I mean that's a good reference point actually for when I put the the red dot in. That little dimple. Okay, and it's starting to go around some of the panel lines, which is good. And I'm hoping that as it dries, we put the next micro sole on there. That will help it even more. Yeah, that's good. Okay. Let's have a little bit of colour on there. And the next one. Now we haven't got so many reference points on this one, but it will be symmetrical. Actually, I'll say that. I don't think there's any so much in the way. You haven't got those panels and stuff. Still have that little dimple there, but knowing that that's on that side. Oh, and paint a bit of this on. And this will just help it move and just sort of conform a bit. At least that's the plan. That's what it should do anyway. Just pop that on. Just roughly hold that in place about there. Slide it out. And now, just using the eye, I can get that so it looks level. Both sides are level. Just a touch. And from the top, that needs to come up a little bit that way. And I think about there, maybe a millimetre that way, that's fine. Okay, so that's looking, actually it does look a bit odd without that red circle in the middle, doesn't it? Now we are going to wait a moment, give that a little to dry before we put the red dots on, just to make sure. I might even do that at a later date, or say later time, after I've got this first one bedded in, just to make sure that beds in, so we're not trying to get the micro sole through 2 layers. But looking a bit better there. So don't lose those dots. Next, going to put on. So this is right, this is left. What does that say? To now we're going to be using number 4 because I've got an open canopy door. Now this actually, this is going to be interesting. So I'm not going to be using this one. I'm going to be using this one with the notch taken out. So I will take, I shall remove that, pop that over there. So we'll be using that K. We'll be using decal number 4. It's easier. And I'll get that number 4 out, otherwise that'll be floating around when it dissolves. Pop that in there. And actually what will be interesting is I'm doing this one first, because that little notch is going to go where the door is, and then we can use that to align, to then it goes then through a straight line to whereabouts the K is, which should, the bottom of the K should literally be on the line for between the bottom colour and the top colour. I say bottom, there's literally like half a millimetre, so it's not actually sat directly onto the dark egg green. I'll pop that K in as well. Just ones for this side. I need that. No, that's not the rubbish pile. I mean, they have got left and right on here, just as a little reminder. just in case you don't bother looking at the numbers and you just make assumptions. And we've got a little bit of the decal that will be going onto the door, which we will do in a moment. Actually, let's cut that out. We'll be doing that in a sec. That's the K. Get rid of those numbers. We'll pop that in as well. Pop a bit of the old micro set on. I believe, I'd imagine, this one's called the micro set because it helps you set the position, and the other one's micro sol because it's more of a solvent that then breaks down the backing, which then is why it sort of sucks down. I'll just give that a little moment more. It's starting to move, but I don't want to tear it. What I do want to do is just check with the door which way is up. Okay, so the lip, I remember this, so there is, on the door, there's a little lip bit that sticks out, and I wasn't too sure if that was the bit that goes across the top or the bottom, and it's not, it's the lip goes at the bottom, because that'll be where the hinge is. Technically I'm going to be putting this on here, which you're not going to see, because then the door's going to be open, but we will put it on there because that's what we do. So I'll pop that there for now. Let's get this back out. And we should that be moving a bit better now. That's good. So be careful where I put my fingers. I don't want to take off a decal. Slide that off, almost into position. Now slide this around. So that's, I think we got it, actually. It goes up a fraction of a millimetre. I think that's in place. Oh, it was in place. Right, and carefully, without trying to move it, so that's a very good natural reference point for that door. There we go, right. Oh, no. There we go. That's on. Let's get the K on. So we know the K is going to go somewhere up here. Now it doesn't seem to be quite something's not quite right there. Let me, might just be my eye. Get a spacing for this. And there's a panel line, which is just to the back next to the K. In fact, the K just crosses that panel line there. Okay, literally okay. Right. Oh, come on, man. Had that just perfect to the millimetre. So there's a little bit where two panel lines come together. The K, back of the K, literally just touches that. And is in line with just a little bit of a gap between the bottoms of the K's and the duck egg. Moved again. Okay, come on. There we go, once it kind of bites down, it sort of, yeah. I just feel so this D is too high, but it can't be because everything else is in line. I think that's fine. And now, where was that little door? The bit with the lip is the bottom part. There even seems to be a little notch cut out for the notch there, which is nice. That just ensures that sits nicely there. And then I move it around with the cotton bud. Right. Now, if you were to, if this were to slot in here, there would actually be a little bit of a gap, but that is because we're using the version which is for the open door, which as you can hopefully see there, there's a little bit just at the bottom there, a little bit of a lip that kicks out, and that enables it just to sort of hook over. But in reality it would sort of fit flush. There is two doors in there, which is why there's a bit of a gap at the bottom there. And in reality this is really going to be flush. Well, not completely flush actually. It's mainly going to be flush, so you wouldn't actually see that anyway. It was perfect when I started. Pop that over there so we don't lose that. And on the other side, I should have had these soaking. Put the DW in there. a bit more water. And the K. And we've also got the French flags on the to go on there in a moment as well. I know they're not French flags, obviously. Don't write in to complain about that one. These are starting to. So they do feel quite a bit thick. They feel a bit thinner now they're on there actually, but when you are taking them off, they do feel thick. Not like the really thin ones where you're afraid they're going to rip too much. These don't feel as delicate as what some decals do. But I always find with Tamiya ones, they kind of go on a bit thick, and you're a bit worried. But once they settle, they're fine. Just looking at the panel lines we've got here, we're going to look at the bottom of this D. Oh, natural load of glare on there. So the bottom of the D is almost touching, or pretty much touching, and there's also just a little panel line there where we've got this little hatch, a little circular hatch here. To the right of that there's a panel line that comes down. Where that panel line goes into the duck egg green, that is pretty much whereabouts the bottom corner of the D goes. We can use that as our reference point, and that comes across, and pretty much the top of it goes straight along, almost, no, it does dip down to that panel line a little bit, but that's going to use that as our reference point, almost touching the yellow circle. So hopefully the circle is in place correctly. That still needs a little bit. At least we've kind of got a good reference point to go. Paint some of that on. It might have been a good idea to start with a K being smaller. Geez, the K moving. K's starting to go, but not quite. Same with the DW. So there we go. So make sure I don't take it off on the other side whilst I'm here. I don't want to be doing this one side and turned out my fingers. Take it off that D. We'll go into that little corner there. Just hold that roughly in place. Slide that out. If that goes well, that should go there, just across that line. Which it does slightly. Bring that back. The W is just to the top of that W is just above that panel line, and it almost, but doesn't quite touch the yellow circle. Of course, this is also assuming that my masking for the was in the correct place, which it appears it is. At the moment, that D is wrapping round just a little bit too much at the top. That's it. Bang on the top, which it actually pretty much is. The top of the D is pretty much right on whereabouts that the centre of that top is. Now, I'm just doing this gently. I just don't want to move it around, just gently doing this to slowly let it press down and grip. There we go. few air bubbles in there, get those pushed out. Ooh. So wherever that K, had my finger right on that DW there. We're fine. Nothing worse than doing decals and you kind of spend ages putting one on and you look at your finger and you've got a lump stuck on your finger from somewhere else. Still on there for the K. The K does actually sit lower, and the top of the K goes right on that panel line there, so that's okay. Pop that in whilst we're waiting. Well, that could be getting a head start. So that K sits right on that panel line where the canopy slides back on. And comes to just that panel line about there. Well, it might be in place. Let's just try to lock it in before I do anything else. There's a possibility that should have come over a little bit now. I reckon we're about right. Similar sort of spacing to what we've got on that side and there. So that adds a little bit more colour to it, and Decal's definitely going down quite well, especially over the gloss. Got to put these on the tail, and the red goes first, so it's the same number. Sometimes with these they're kind of shaped to fit on the tail, on the rudder, or not the rudder, the tail. These aren't, they're symmetrical, so it's the same number. Yeah, sometimes they have a little notch cut out just so it fits. Don't need to worry about that, and that goes right ahead of the movable rudder parts, so it is straight on there. And the red, pretty much, actually the corners pretty much almost touch on there. Ahead of myself. Now, let's see what other stencils we've got to. So, although that's scheme specific, we've also got these generic stencils, which are pretty much going to be the same for all options. Have a look. I'll come to those in a moment. Okay, starting to get a bit of movement on those. Well, I don't know why I did that. So it goes in line with the rudder, the actual joint there, and then just comes there. In fact, I think it sits on the top of that small photo etch part, which obviously you can't see, but which is so small. There's a little photo etch part that went on there, I recall. I didn't put it there myself, I wouldn't know it was there. So it sits in line with the rudder. If we move that down, it should just sort of stop when it gets to that photo etch parts. Yeah. Pretty flat. I'm going to say, actually, I said I wasn't, just because I'm here, I'm going to put these little red dots on. Do those little dots now, they're only small, they should be fine. Then we've kind of got that side of it done. Actually, we will check what other ones need to be done. So I've got those on. So that we have got a few other smaller stencils to go on as well. So I think what I'm going to do in this session, I'm going to do the ones that are on here, and then go back to doing the more, just the smaller stencils, those sort of things, after these ones have gone. So whilst those little red dots are going, they are pretty much there with the wanting a 33. So we have got tons of these little small ones. Oh, we want the ones that go over the gun ports. I'm going to leave the numbers on them for now because some of those have got kind of a bevel on there, just to make sure they go the right way around. I don't think that would make any difference, but I think it's just contour of the wing, so it'd be obvious. But I wanted a 33, which is there. Right, I can take off. There's the yellow for the tips. I've painted them on anyway. I've actually got a slightly different shade of yellow, but that's a bit more orangey actually on here. I guess I could always put them on, but no, well, I've got them painted now. But we're wanting a 33 there. Leave the number on that one just so I know which way's up. In the middle of each one, and hopefully should be a simple case of just putting that in there. Got far too much water on there, and now it's sat on a bubble of water. Which is meaning it's moving around, it's literally floating. So with this, I'm using this brush just to take off as much excess moisture, hold the brush bristles on there, and the brush bristles kind of wick away that extra water. Because of that, when I say wick away the extra water, I'm literally talking about the big drip of it. That in the middle, that in the middle. Is it definitely in the middle? This is where I start doubting myself. Cool. Cool. And they're symmetrical on both sides. Make sure I don't touch those, because that's the sort of thing where you pick it up and you find yourself got a red dot on your finger. That can go in there. This is only small, so this should be about ready to go. And if I recall, this was 33. Come on. Which has come off. No, it hasn't. It was the number that had come off. Which also goes on there. It just goes to the right of that panel, but in the blue part. A little bit actually in the yellow. So that is those decals 2-9, that's fine. We will now do these, the red, what this actually is, these red bits are fabric parts, red fabric, that once the gun was loaded, I believe, and they would actually paint that over, sort of fabric over there, just to keep it sealed, and then once it was fired, it would then fire through the fabric, and then obviously rip through the fabric, which would be fine. It's tempted to paint these on, but I'm actually going to, because they were actually sort of stuck on, you wouldn't actually have them painted over neatly with the gun sort of showing through. That is my belief of them. So 29s, these go on the end. Over that one, I'm just going to pop a little bit of that over there, put that on there. And I've kind of, the number just exploded. There is a slight curve, so I'm hoping I'm putting this on the right way round. If not, I'll have to wrap that round. I'm going to take this one off and reverse it. I don't know why, but that doesn't seem to sit right. Can I take it off? Water. Try that again, that way round. There we go. Oh, it's a little bit too much that side. That was the wrong way round. Well, it was right the first time round. Let's reverse the plane. No, yeah, that's better. That is. Right. Whew. I should have remembered which way that wrapped. Okay, they've got the bigger ones. Just use a bit of that water off of there. Don't put that in upside down. Checking that the gun barrels are central to that, which they are on that one. And also on that one. Just try to then just literally just push it round. No, there we go. Stay there. Okay. Now I've tried doing these on 70-second scale and they're an absolute nightmare. 48 scale is a little bit more forgiving. And these ones here. Okay, that's, oh, okay, I was about to say that works, but there we go. That one doesn't want to just, oh, no, stick to the model, not my finger. There we go. We got it, we got it. Once those are, oh, come on. Go straight. Yep, there we go. That one's not right. Can I take this off, or at least move it? Let's dampen it up. Wasn't quite sitting square, that one. Not once you kind of got the other. Not once I got the other ones in line. Tell it was sort of out of alignment. We're in. That one's popped up. And hopefully once these have actually dried in place, a bit of the mercury sole on there and stuff, that will just settle them in. Oh, I've not taken it, just check my fingers. No, that's good, nothing stuck in my fingers. It's like a blackjack dealer. No decals. Those bumps and stuff will hopefully go down if they're a little bit proud. But I might just need to put a little needle pin in there, then put the microsole on, and that will help it settle. So, done those. Got those on there, and a couple of stencils on here, and then actually 50 Got some on here, but I don't know what those ones must be. There. Okay, actually this, for some reason, some of them are on here and some of them are on here. I'll just do all that in one go. I'm going to call that done now, because essentially we've done, for all intents and purposes, the colourful ones. The rest of these are now just going to be black, with, apart from some little walkways. It's just going to be a case of getting these little small fiddly ones on there, which I think we'll do after a cup of tea. So that's fine. So for now, I'm just going to let these go. I'm going to pop the lid on this before I knock it over. Leave, oh, hang on, that's popped up. Push that down, come on, you stay in place. So leave this for a bit, just for these to sort of settle in. Put on some of the micro sole. That is the red version of this stuff. So maybe one or two applications of that. Let these properly bed down so I know that they're solid. Then I can do some of the more fiddly ones, the more fiddly stencils there, knowing that actually these are sort of like, you know, locked in place. I'm not going to end up getting them on my fingers, because they're going to be much more bedded down. But they do want to, these smaller ones do just want to keep popping up, but that's fine. Cool, okay. I reckon it's starting to definitely look, you know, got those, a bit of colour on there. Definitely starting to look the parts. It is looking very new and shiny, obviously with the gloss coats, with the nice clean decals on there. But once we get all that on there, then we can add a bit of a wash, pull out those panel lines, and it will actually start making it not look quite so toy-like, I guess. It does look a little bit too clean at the moment, but I think it's all starting to come together nicely. Right, let's go and have that cup of tea, and I'll catch you later. So, Spitfire's pretty much done now, for all intents and purposes, apart from sticking the wheels on, the doors on for the gear bay, pitot tube, stick the prop on, and the aerial mast, and some cable for the aerial itself. We're pretty much done, and that's going to be a short job. In fact, it's actually turned out quite well already, and yeah, we've kind of got, with that pre-shading, we've kind of got a bit of a naturally sort of like, but it's just kind of broken up some of those, the paint seems a little bit, I wouldn't say patchy on there, but we've just kind of got a little bit of texture on there. But because it has actually come out quite well, it would be a shame just to weather this up too much. Sometimes weathering is great for covering up mistakes, but actually it's looking quite good. Mistakes we did have, like on the tail, we managed to rectify, and it's all quite a nice clean model, and literally could pop the props on those fine little bits, stick it on the shelf and call it done. What I want to do though is just draw some attention to some of that detail that's in there, which isn't quite so obvious here, but should hopefully pop using some of the Tamiya panel line accent, and that's the dark brown colour, which should still be visible on the colours on the top and the bottom, but without being so stark as if we're just using black or something like that. The idea is I'm going to pop this on. That's hopefully going to go into the little panel lines, remove the excess. In the process of doing that, sometimes you still get a bit of residue left, which helps to just add a more natural sort of dirtiness to it without so much of putting a dirty wash on there. So we can still keep it looking quite clean, but also kind of used. Just take that newness off of some of the bits and pieces. So we'll just pop this on. So let's bring in a little bit more. And this stuff basically comes in the same jar with a little brush, just like your Tamiya extra thin cement does. The idea, if I just sort of choose a panel line here, pop a little drop on there, and hopefully it should start running around. Now it has had the gloss coat on, which should help the capillary action just start taking it out. It's kind of going there. Now, okay, I've put it in the corners, but hopefully you can see we're now starting to get the little lines, basically literally connecting the dots. I've kind of put on the dots are a little bit too big actually there, to be perfectly honest. Just around these little hatches. Actually, it's not flowing quite as well as what it normally does. They have got quite a nice sort of gloss finish on there, but for some reason it's just not flowing quite as well. You can see you've got those dots. I'm just going to try just painting it down the lines a little bit. Okay, so I'm doing it a bit messily, to be perfectly honest there. Just trying to get that to flow in a bit more. And most of the panels are actually on the panel line's going to be on the bottom. And now, taking cotton bud, just want to try to clean off that excess. Actually, I'll see, that might do. A little bit of kitchen roll. Actually, just see if I can wipe that. Now, I don't want my panel lines to be popping too much, but I don't know how well it's showing up on the camera there. It is clear there are some hatches and compartments there, so that's good. So literally panel lines. Wiping it off a little bit too soon, it hadn't quite dried in there. But hopefully you can now see the panel lines in comparison to that wing. Only a bit more, it's just got a little bit more contrast to them. Let's try that again, try and angle it a little bit, so I'm trying to get gravity to help as well as the capillary action. That always popped, that did. On that one. In fact, I'm just painting that on those wings there. What I may do, may just go back onto these ones, just add a little bit more. I think I wiped it off a little bit too quickly, maybe a little bit too subtle. And being a brown muddy colour, this does also, as I say, help just with natural weathering anyway. You should really see the benefit of this on the lower side because it's a lighter colour and there's more panel lines to be seen. See that one there. Okay, I'm literally just painting that down there. Annoyingly, despite the putting on the micro set and the micro sole, the decals, especially those roundels, do still seem quite thick, and they haven't really sort of sucked into the panel lines as much as we want. So let's just have a mouthful of tea. Let's see if I can just do that a bit more smoothly. Actually, first of all, try and remove the heavy where the drips were. Seems to be a bit better this time. You can always see how it is actually sort of like leaving. You could, sort of like a trying to go with a flow there where the airflow would sort of be. So we'll sort of wipe it off the surface, but leave it in the cracks, in the gaps. Oh, and also where this refueler bit is, that's very clean and shiny, so a bit of that on there just to help some of that detail up. But we do have some rivets around here actually, so if I'm going to paint it over, that will not only highlight the panel lines, also hopefully the rivet detail as well. Under there. To be honest, the green is quite dark, and we're doing a brown on top of brown, so it probably again isn't showing too much for the camera. I personally am not a fan of the real heavy pre-shading and post-shading and panel lines, to be perfectly honest. I do obviously want some panel lines on here because it does aid. One thing I do need to do is I need to touch in a little bit of the edges with some of that cockpit green. Actually, I will get the, that's the, I'll grab it in a bit. It's literally just some of the edges. And some of these decals are a bit thick, so it is, fortunately the panel lines with the decals over aren't going to pop as much, but saying that, they're not popping a huge amount anyway. Paint over. We still might get a bit of shadow from it. Perhaps there with some rivet detail around, so I'm just going to liberally blob it on, to be honest. I'm just doing all the bits that are on the darker colour there, or the darker upper colours. do the undersides in a moment. But I think you can see that they were starting to get a bit of these sort of panels on the top, gun access panels. They are standing out a bit more, but without being completely obvious, which is kind of what I want. I know I keep saying, this has actually started to dry a little bit more. I think I just need, this is why I just got and done a bit more of it. So hopefully now if I just start rubbing this off. Using a little scrap of this. Right, with that little filler cap hasn't got quite as much shine to it, which is good. We will add further weathering for the exhaust staining and smoke for the gun ports as well. It has some of it is caught in. Actually, there's probably a bit of shine right where the that white. I think. Now I did cross my mind to use the Flory wash, which I regularly use. Decided to do the Tamiya one purely because I look back on the 109 and the 190 that I did in 48 scale. And maybe I'm not too sure about the Mosquito, but I'd use the Vallejo paints for them and this Tamiya panel line washing. So I thought I'm going to do that similar, just use the same, just so when they're on the shelf next to each other, there's a sort of consistency on the scale. So we can see we've got panel line accessible panels, being a little bit more obvious, those little recesses. And around the front we can see we've got a bit more wear sort of visible, including where those rivets are on either side, or the catches, latches, that sort of thing. Access panels. But we haven't made it look mucky. There's maybe little bits which are maybe more mucky than others, but it's not like it's covered in a layer of grime or mud. Let's flip it over and repeat. Now this is probably where it's going to be a lot more visible, because we've got a lot more panel lines going over a lighter colour. So hopefully now I'll start doing this. Oh, that's far too much. It's going to start getting. I'm actually just going to sort of be painting it, literally painting it on. I think if I'd used a proper gloss coat and not the Pledge, but an actual proper modelling gloss coat, I'd have had a much better shine. And the idea of just putting a little dots, and this is it. I find this is more of a satin finish rather than an actual gloss finish, which is fine actually, because it means then I don't need to knock it back. Sometimes if you do a gloss finish, you then need to give it another go over with a satin to finish it, knock it back a bit. Running it down, although there's no sort of real panel, actually there are some panel lines there, but then just to down the edges, just because that will help create a bit more shadow on there as well. Just sort of painting it on there because you have got some sort of, you've got ridges and ribbing there. And of course pop some into the wheel wells. I do need to remember that also just runs around the side of the wheel wells just to give a bit more definition to it. And what I was just saying is I do need to remember to do, actually I'll do it now with these before putting, this is why I didn't want to put them on straight away. This is to do those doors. What I'll do, although there's no raised detail on here, I'm just going to put a blob on each and then wipe it off, just because that will be happening to the rest of it and it won't make these go as clean and shiny as those, even though the idea is it will have that just that very thin layer on. And actually, whilst we're here as well, there's actually quite nice detail on the wheels. But we'll just hit that, and that just makes some of those extra details pop out. Again, this is why I didn't want to put them on straight away. Blue tack on there. Okay, it's probably not visible there, but the little rims do now pop a little bit more. It's actually quite surprising as you sort of paint this on how much detail there actually is on the bottom here. Those little recess lines really do start popping out. Again, actually little like rivets on the side of that intake, and little hatches on the bottom of it. It really is surprising how much detail there is actually in here that you don't see until something like this actually comes over it. So well done, Tamiya. Again. Lots of little ports, hatches, obviously fuel tank drainage bits and where you test the fuel and those sort of things. All of those under there. So it really does look a bit of a mess. Those wings. Right, it's literally just been a minute to absolute top, so it's not like I've gone away and I haven't made a cup of tea or anything like that. Just enough time just to take a couple of photos for the website. And get another bit of kitchen roll. So this should have had a little bit more time to dry. It's definitely lightened as it's dried, doesn't look wet. Just wondering if I've left it too long now. Perhaps I should have done it in smaller batches. Enough pressure to like clean it off, but not to do any damage, especially to the decals or anything there. Perhaps what I should have done is done one wing at a time, just so I could do a comparison of a before and after. And we do have these little decals that took ages to put on, so I've just got to be careful that I don't just scrub them off. You can put your micro set and sole and those sort of things on, but if you go in scrubbing, you're still going to take them off. Actually, some of this might still be a bit heavy. I've got on here a little bit of thinners. I did have, actually, it's pretty much dried off, actually. Just for taking that excess. So I dipped that in thinners probably about 5 minutes ago, actually, and that's the just enamel thinners, because this is enamel based. It's still getting, see those panel lines really starting to show out now, which is nice. And because we're using the brown, though it's not coming off clean, it's still kind of giving a more naturally worn, muddy look. Looking alright, I reckon. That is looking alright. Those panel lines are there, but they're not like, it's not like bang in your face type panel lines, which is good. I think I'd actually left this a bit too long to dry, to be honest. After the top part, trying to take it off whilst it was still too wet, and then taking it out the panel lines, I haven't had a chance to dry in the lines. I've done this a bit too much, but taking off the immediate heavy with kitchen paper, and then clean up with a dampened, hardly dampened, but only slightly, it's pretty much evaporated off. Seems to be working quite well. Right, that is pretty much knackered now. What I will do is, so what I've been using, got the Humbrol enamel thinners. Pop a bit in there, get the excess off on the end of the cotton bud. Pop that to one side. So I'm just using that there. I won't put it on the mat because it is possible that the thinners will start eating into my mat, because these are enamel thinners. whilst that's just sort of gets the excess, absolutely stinks. Getting there, whilst the excess is evaporating off of that, I'm just going to see if I can wipe as much excess of this as I can. There we go. Now we have to brace the side of these wings anyway, because those wing tips are added on. One-piece wings. I'm assuming that's so Tamiya could in the future do a version with the cut-off wing. The squared, not rounded, although with the Spitfire the rounded definitely looks better visually. Really starting to have to fight this now because it's proper dried on. I should have done it in smaller batches. Okay, so I've got, as I say, cotton bud, a little bit of this on. It's still quite wet, so I don't want to do it too much. Just put a little bit over there. There we go, just literally that little bit is just enough to activate it. I went a bit to town on that bit, didn't I? But you got some little details there, which I didn't even know were there. Now just popped out. It's still too wet, I think, to go directly in rubbing it with this, which is why I'm sort of more using it to transfer on lightly. And again, similarly with that little bit there, some panels there. I think at the stage I can now just start doing look okay. Well, I've said it once, I'll say it again. It does, being brown, just help to give that sort of a bit more muddy, dirty sort of feeling, just where, you know, landing on grass, runways, grass strips. That takes off the immediate definitely that's looking a lot more busier now, and actually some of that pre-shading that was on there now doesn't look quite as obvious, which was something I was a little worried about. Okay, just give it excess drips. I'm trying to do this lightly because otherwise it will still pull it out of the panel lines. I think I've broken down the major lumps of it. Looking dirty and there's looking silly. You don't want it to look silly. So we have got it on the top. Doesn't say show as much. I mean, it is visible. I'm just wondering whether I should just put a little bit more on those panels just to make them pop a little bit more. Yeah, those ones, I know I've done them a couple of times. They catch the light. Sometimes I can see them and it stands out a bit. But I think I'm going to pop that on these ones here. Just don't seem to be, I'm not looking to stand out loads, but they just don't seem to be quite enough. You know, it is lacking contrast because of the colours, the can colours, that are, you know, it's a brown and a dark green, so I'm having that battle in the first place. So just going to give those a little extra go over. Right, whilst I'm here, that just wanted a bit of a little clean up as well. I've got the wheel wells on the bottom. These are pretty much ready to come off. That gives pulls that detail out. The wheels actually that anyway. I might just leave that, otherwise I want to start taking the paint off. Forgot, actually got the wheel wells in there. Don't mind these being a little bit muddier because, you know, it's where the muddy wheels go. Pulling up that detail. basically just, yeah. Okay, rub the cotton off the cotton bud, that's fine. I think we are there with that one. That's dried back a bit more. A bit of this one. Seems to be a little bit better actually. So that just pops them out a little bit more, just a little bit more. And I do. Just a little bit too much surplus. I think any more than that I'm going to start actually affecting the paint too much. But we do have them coming out, but when you flip over obviously there's a lot more going on underneath. Still got the cleanness to it a bit. I say cleanness, as in it's still looking relatively clean. It's not had a, you know, looks like it's been gone over with a hose pipe type thing rather than an actual proper car wash or plain wash. Actually, rear wheel is now looking a little bit clean. Panel there that just seemed to be missed. And of course remember, still going to be a little bit more weathering to go on this anyway with some oils, that's the plan. Now just spot cleaning this has very, very lightly dampened. There's much more I can do. The thing is, some of the bits where I'm thinking actually do I need to take them off, that's actually the pre-shading. So I have to move away any of that. I don't think I can do any more for now. I think the best thing to do is going to be to leave this to let it dry. Let this sort of bed in, and then once that's done, we'll just put a bit of few oils on there. Actually, what I will do is do these put these gear doors on now. She is pretty much falling off. A few little grips. It's amazing how little was on there and how, you know, that still is wet. So let's see, that one would go on that side. Yeah, that to go there. Oh, just trying to work out the best way to glue this. I don't know what I'm using this one, hardly any left. Right, I've just dropped the blob of glue right on that. So we might need to be doing a bit of touching up with that. Yeah, I will. Let's get it on. I can do that afterwards. Yeah, that glue. It's just taking off the paint. Just going to get my fingerprints in it if I'm not too. Yeah, I'm already down to plastic in places. Yeah, I'm just going to have to do a little bit of touching up on there just whilst I blobbed the glue. Let's try it the other way around on this one. Place. It was. Nothing really for them to connect onto. Nothing for it to actually physically hold it into position. that one. All I can do with that is basically just hold them into place whilst the glue done its stuff. What's the next bit? There was, I think there's a pitot tube that needs to go somewhere. Done that. I'd already got the version of it. Should be, there's the little hole. Let's get the proper bottle, or a new bottle, which has actually got stuff in and a brush that's still pointy. I'm hoping with this, so we can pop it into the slot, so at least that's got enough just to grip it, which it has. Drip of that there. That'll lock that in place. Oh, door. I've actually already put some weather and wash on that. Oh, we've already got one of those dropping off. Yeah, with everything else, there's obviously location tabs, but these gear door covers literally just hold into position and wait for the glue to dry, which is a bit odd. That just pushed it a little touch more. So where were we? Door cover. So door. Go. Which way up? There's a little lip. And might have to pop some glue on there. There we go. That was just tacky enough just to hold it into place. That lip isn't really enough to grab it. And what I will do is the edges, just going to have to touch some of the edges up with the internal green. But that's fine. Obviously wanted to wait until I put that on, until after I'd sort of put the panel lining, because I knew I was going to have to be brushing it off. And we have that will just sit on there. Naturally I wanted to wait until I've done that exactly for this bit, so I didn't accidentally give it a bang. Make sure that's straight. That's straight. The final bits to go on literally are wheels. I'm just trying to wait for them to dry a little bit. Prop and canopy, the sliding canopy parts. In fact, let's pop wheels each of these. Bit of the glue. There we go. Oh. Wheels on straight, put that back on straight, doors still on. So essentially what can happen now is this can just slide on, and canopy, I will do a little bit of white glue on there at some point. Oh, what's happened there? I seem to have taken some of the colour off. I might have to weather that in that case. Must have rubbed that. Anyway, canopy is here. That will just sit in over there in the slid back position. But what I will do is I can always just tack that into place with a little bit of PVA glue, just so it stays in place. But I'll do that after that's dried properly. So those are just all your two movable bits, or removable parts for now. So again, we could call this done from the weathering point of view, but what I want to do is just do a final little touch up with some oils if I feel like it's needed, just in a few little areas, maybe just because I've put a bit of obviously the enamel thinner has bleached some of the colour out of that, so I might need to do a little bit of weathering just on there, which is annoying, and a bit of smoke staining from the exhaust and for the gun ports as well. But again, that's the next phase. Just leave this, walk away from this bit, let all those bits dry on, and then we can just come back and do that final detail. It's just going to be a case of finishing up now. So panel lines on, that has dried, and actually, yeah, it comes out okay. So you can see it's obviously a bit more on the bottom, but I think on the top it's subtle, but you can see it there. I want to put a bit of staining on there, and also might do a little bit of chipping and that sort of thing as well. But first of all, I'm going to use some oils. I've just literally just got a pack of cheap and cheerful little tubes of oil paints. And what I've done is I've just popped onto a bit of paper. You can put it onto cardboard or something. Just try to let some of the oils just sort of seep out. So I've got a bit of white, which you probably can't see there. Probably just more of the shadow of the white. Some light brown, I think that was raw umber, burnt umber, cobalt blue, and black. But the black seemed to have quite a little bit of linseed oil. So what we'll be doing is I've just got some brushes. The reason I use these ones, these are white, just so I know that these are my oil brushes, and just take a little bit of the white. I just want to dab it down the sides whereabouts the exhausts. See? Just roughly, I probably should look at some sort of reference pictures and stuff just to get that, remove some of that excess there. A bit of the let's take a bit of that blue. Just put a few little dots of that blue on as well. And that white. And maybe a bit of that brown. You can probably get the idea of what I'm trying to do there. What I want to do now trying to blend that in. I'm just trying to take the excess off. And I'm just trying to sweep back where those exhausts are. Okay. Put far too much on, so that's take that excess off. So now what I want to try to do is just try to use a different brush. Yeah, that should do. I mean, that's obviously a bit too obvious there. Just want to try to just bring that back. Make it more diffuse. I want to have it so obvious there. Maybe just a bit more white there. Just kind of building up the layer of this, if anything. Also trying to put it back in the direction of the airflow. Blue. So what I could do is just use a cocktail stick. Put a little bit of that blueness in there. That's actually far too much there. It's better, so we're starting to get much more diffuse. Built up too much there, it should have faded out a bit more. So just brushing it off. So we've just got a bit of more of a hint of the smoke. So am I taking too much off there now? Trying to get that balance. Because we've got where the gun, where the bullets, the guns are. Now actually that tape would have been put on fresh each time, so I'm just going to pop some dots, just this lighter brown, not where the gun barrel exit is, just this side of that tape. So we'll just do the bottom first. Use that brush and just draw that back. Going to blend that in a bit more. That is a little bit too much there going on, I reckon. Fill up our base layer, do the same on the top, and then I'll come in a few more colours once we've got that base built up. The burnt. So this is now the darker brown. Wiping that off with my finger, I realised on the bottom. It's looking a bit heavy. It's not showing up too much on the top parts. Let's get a bit of white now on there. Too much there. Again, now I'll just start trying to blend that down as well. Excess there. Okay, starting to look again much too heavy, but I'm hoping I'm going to start drawing this down just the direction of the airflow. blend it in so it just sort of stops around there. I got those sort of streaks again far too heavy here, so let's make sure we go in the direction of airflow. There we go. I think we want to add a little bit of staining just around where that fuel filler is. Just to pop a little blob like that one there. I'll just use this just to put that in. So well that actually. You can kind of see we got that, yeah. Really that roughly there. I think we just want to add a few other little bits of this is one of the fun bits now, is just to take, just, for example, just blue and just literally randomly just dot a few little bits of blue. A bit here, a bit there, a bit there, a bit there. Just smudge it in. Just adds a little bit of sort of marking. It's a bit too heavy there. Where's that blue? Try to brush those in with the airflow. This seems a bit too heavy here. So what we can do is take a little bit of white spirit, artist white spirit, and use the cleaner brush. You drip. And I literally have even got too much on there already. Dry it off and then just wipe that over where I don't want it. Activates it a bit, just let it moves around. I guess what we could do is just add a little bit of brown on the bottom here and there. And this is just generic sort of grime. Again, see how I'm always doing this in the direction of the airflow. I'm not actually wanting you to see, for this bit, streaks. Obviously there we do. That's whereabouts it's going to come from, but here we're just looking. I'm just going to clean it off of those red patches that would be put on each time, so they would really be clean. There we go. So I reckon it'd be cool that done on there. What I want to do, a few other things. How should we do? It's rust and weathering set. What I want is a streaking grime, just because I want to add a bit of fuel. Streaking grime. This is enamel based. Give this a shake up. Basically, this is very similar to the brown wash that I've already put on. But what I want to do is just take a little bit of this on a brush. I just want to pop that around that fuel filler. Not too much. Just run off. So just very subtly. Don't even know if this was sharp on the camera. Just around that fuel filler. And maybe just in these bottom bits. Here we've got some little hatches, little dots. It's just like I did with the see, I'm just drawing it back a little bit. Here and there. I'll just use this flatter one as well. Blend that in. So we're about getting there on that one. So again, you can just see just around these little hatches, there's just a little bit of dirt and grub and grime. What I perhaps should have done first is, actually this will do, is to just put a little bit of chipping. So what's this? This is the silver. I think that might be a bit too bright. What other one have we got? Try doing that one. That's metallic. Actually, no. We'll stick with what we've got. Bit of kitchen paper. this might even work. So I'm just going to scrunch that up. So it's, yeah, it's not quite what I'm looking for. I'm just trying to find what I don't know what I'm looking for. Or just make a bit of a random, and the idea is might be too much just with that little walkway bit there. Slight. I'm just going to dry brush this on, just to add a little bit of idea of chipping. Bring those panels and hatches. Probably should have done that before I put the smoke on. So could I actually cocktail stick, that would be fine. Just these access panels for the guns where they'll be regularly coming off. Do that. I don't want to smear. You're going to have a smeared paint chip. Crazy on this. Actually, probably would be worth just adding actually this area here a little bit more dirt and grime, just purely because that's where your pilot's going to be in and out. So let's just take some of that little dot, the burnt umber, so a little dot of the black. Dot of the brown. Just for that walkway. So we've chipped it a little bit. Just going to be putting a bit more wear on there. Come off. that little area there, we've got a few little paint chips and scuffs, and just a little bit more dirtier than the other side. Actually get some of that up onto the bottom of that D, just to highlight that a bit more. So we've got a bit of smokiness on top, not completely massively used, but you can see that there's definitely a bit. Actually, what I might just do, take a bit of the black, and each of these ejection ports, actually all the dark brown, just a little blob at the rear of each of those. Just draw that back. Oh, hang on. Done that because I just took off some of the weathering that I wanted to keep on. That's okay, because with oils you can build it up, move it around. I reckon if I keep nussing around this, I'm just going to end up turning it into a brown lump. Just a little bit more white just to break that one up. Okay, I reckon on that side of things we're done on that. So I think if I start doing any more, we're going to be mucking things up. The final thing we need to do is to put a cable on, or 3 cables actually. We just get. So I have here some rigging, stuff for rigging. What I want to do is to do the cable that comes from the base plate of the mast up to the little notch that sticks out, and then onto the tailplane. This has got some slight elasticness to it. I've got a little blob of blue tack on the end to find it. There. So my plan is, I wonder if, I'll just turn that over for now, at least you might be able to see the thread. Okay, you can probably see how elastic it is. Okay, Just managed to come through the side of the bobbin. How do I manage that? There we go. Let's get it tied through one of them holes. Let's take a length of this off. It's more than I'm going to need. Trim that bit there. And no, lost it. That's what I didn't want to do. There we go. Let's keep. I can find the end. That little top bit is light has just come off. I'll put that back on in a bit. First off, super glue, small dot on that base plate, and hopefully tweezers. Should have got the tweezers first. Take the glue, just touch that end. Glue. Not letting go of the tweezers. Kind of knot. Right, that's now on the base plate. Okay, that is now attached. That the bit. Small dot, little notch. A moment. So now we can see we've got that. That seems to have gripped it. And we have now completed our finished Spitfire Mk.1. That's the Tamiya 1 to 48 scale kit. So get that done. I'm just going to make sure before I start doing anything else that that all dries. And then once we're happy with that, we can then take a few photos. But I'm going to call that one done. Thanks very much. I hope you've enjoyed that. Make sure you hit the subscribe, hit the like if you liked it. If you didn't like it, well, hit the dislike, it's fine, it all still adds to the algorithm. And if you do subscribe, hit the little bell thing so you can get the notifications for future builds. I hope you've enjoyed that one. I'm going to go and have a cup of tea and then leave you with a few pictures. Oh, that's not glued on, of course. leave you with a few pictures of this, and of course check out robsmodels.co.uk for more photos and build information. Cool. Right, I am off for a cup of tea, so happily modelling, and see you soon. I hope you've enjoyed that one.